Howdy, ladies and gentlemen, and it's quite appropriate that we say howdy,
Mhm.
and we begin this podcast with this word because it's quite a famous word down in the southern U.S. Am I right, brother?
Howdy,
Yeah,
maybe for, I mean, not in my community. We don't say howdy.
I get it. I get it. I get
We
it.
might
I
say
get it.
what's up.
That is all I know from the movies that I've watched, the cowboy movies, so to speak.
Okay.
But
Yeah, we say what's up.
yeah, yep, yep. I get it. I get it. If I say that, it'll sound very fake. So But allow me to introduce my guest, ladies and gents. This is Mahdi, the upcoming budding artist. Well, I never got your full name, brother. What? Mahdi?
It's Mahdi Hill.
Mahdi Hill. Okay, okay. He joins us from Atlanta, USA. I've disturbed him and woken him up on a weekend morning, but he was glad and looking forward to do it. And I was looking forward to do this. He is my first foreign guest on my podcast, all the way from Atlanta City, USA. Once again, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Can you real quickly tell what you do for work, brother? You're a singer and a rapper, and what else? What else we got to know about you?
All right, so out here in Atlanta, I'm a business owner. I run a resurfacing company, as well as I'm a recording artist out here. I write, I perform, I sing and rap,
Hmm.
and all those types of things as well.
You're a rapper.
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool. I think your music is also out there on the Apple Music and Spotify, and I went through your music. I went through your material. It was fascinating. It was exactly the kind of rap and African American music that I've grown up listening to. I mean, I don't know if you know, but it is reasonably big in India, the Afro American rap music. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Jay-Z. I love Kanye.
those are some of my favorites as well.
Excellent, excellent, perfect, perfect. Now, brother, but we will talk a bit about your art and your work. But the reason why we are doing this podcast is because basically you are angry, and your community is going through a quite an angry time, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Because obviously, ladies and gents, you must have seen the news. You must have seen the killing of George Floyd by these four cops, especially that one cop who was kneeling on his neck, and which ended up killing him. And that was, although that was not the only police brutality killing that ever happened in US, but there was something about this particular killing that sparked a US wide protest. I would also say worldwide protest, because many other people in many other countries are also protesting for your cause. Um,
Mhm.
there must be a lot of protests in your city as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We've been protesting day in and day out for like 6 days now.
Hmm.
I think today will make the seventh day
Hmm.
that we've been protesting in Atlanta.
Hmm. How are the protests going on out there? I mean, are they violent? Are they all right? Have they been violent at the beginning? What can you tell about that?
Well, when it first started off, it's not meant to be a violent protest. It's just
Hmm.
so that we can be heard. Because some things that we face out here in America is, as a community, we feel, especially as an African American community, we feel that our views and how we feel about things and the way we're treated isn't always heard by the higher ups. So I felt like all our supporters shared the grieving of George Floyd and all the other cases that's been swept under the rug, as I would say. Everybody had this emotional feeling about that and just wanted it to be heard. Different people, everybody has their own prerogative. So some may feel like they need to outlet that through violence and looting, but I wouldn't say that the cause 100% supported the violence and looting. It was just to get attention. It was to say, listen to us. This isn't right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I saw in your Instagram story that you were protesting out there, and there was something happening with the cop. What was that about? Can you tell
Well,
about
we
that?
was yes, a couple of my friends. We was out there at the protest. I roll around with a lot of rappers and a lot of artists, so we have a good buzz out here. So people know us. So we gathered a lot of attention while being out in the protest. So I feel like being that we gathered a lot of attention on our way out of the protest, we was going to park around the corner. Some police officers jumped behind us and said that my friend was recklessly driving, and
Hmm.
proceeded to arrest my friend and detained us. And in that video, you'll see I'm asking him like, "Officer, why am I being detained?
Yeah.
What crimes have I committed?" And he went forward to saying that, being that we was in the vehicle with my friend, that's why we're being detained. He doesn't have to read us our rights. He doesn't want to talk to us. I feel like his initial purpose was to try to arrest all of us, but luckily in these day and times, the community is so supportive. You'll see in some of my videos, because I have a longer video of that situation, you'll see that some of the protesters came up and was supporting us and was like, "What did they do? Boom, boom, boom." So I feel like that kind of pressure from the community is what makes them do things right.
Yeah.
Because any other given day, because I've had run-ins with the police before, any other given day they would have searched us all and found probable cause to try to arrest all of us.
Just before that particular story, right? I was seeing your Instagram. You and your friends were funnily protesting like "fuck the police" and all that,
Yeah, it's
in a very
because
low voice. Yeah.
no, well, it's not a low voice because we stand in great numbers,
Okay.
and it's not fuck the whole police. It's because you have good police and you have people who bend the law. We're saying that the system was built incorrectly, and that's what the meaning of fuck the police mean. It doesn't mean fuck all the good police that's out there. It
Hmm.
means fuck the ones who's bending the law. Fuck the system. Change the system so that it can stop oppressing us.
Where were you when this happened? I mean, can you recollect the day when you heard about this or saw about this, and what were your initial thoughts were?
Well, I was initially when it first began, I was out of town. I was in Chicago on vacation with my family.
Hmm.
And a couple of my friends called me and told me like, "Yo, this is what's going on in Atlanta," and stuff like that. So a couple of days later, that's when I got back, and I immediately went a part of it because I stand with my community, and I've experienced oppression from the police before some of these cases that's happened when in my younger ages, around the time when I was 13 years old,
Hmm.
and even before then.
We'll come to that. And isn't I mean, you're going out there protesting, and people are coming out there in large numbers to protest. It must be really stressful to think that yes, we are protesting in groups, but there is also a pandemic going on, right? I mean, there is coronavirus and all this
Mhm.
stuff. And isn't this fact stressing you out when you're going out there? I mean, you have family, you have kids.
Yes. I mean, well, I feel like I take the proper precautions. Like everybody have mask on, gloves on for the most part. You can't control everybody, so some people don't see it as serious. But every time I've went out there, I've had mask and gloves on. I haven't been too
I saw that.
close to any big crowds. Yeah, I'll keep my distance from the big crowd and try to be around, but we're within space.
How are the things now in Chicago? I mean, did any violence happen in Chicago? Any looting? And I mean, I'm sorry, you're in Atlanta, right?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes, I'm in Atlanta.
Yeah. How's the situation now? Are the protests come down with the level of violence? And
Yes,
how's the situation now?
I feel
Hello.
like I'm on it. This is my son. Say hello.
Hi, brother.
So I feel like when it first started,
Hmm.
what people really initially was trying to achieve was justice, because in the beginning of the George Floyd case, they felt like the prosecutors and things like that in the court systems didn't handle it correctly
Hmm.
as far as prosecuting those who killed George Floyd. So that had people's anger high. So in the first couple of days of the Atlanta protests, it was a lot of anger, it was a lot of violence, it was a lot of looting. And that, but like I was telling you before, that was to get the attention, to say
Yeah.
we want justice. So as you've seen, like, I don't support the looting because I feel like some people had their own alternative motives with the looting. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that the protest was bent around stealing things from people's businesses,
A lot of the people who were
but
looting were white people too. Little white kids.
exactly, it was people that had their own prerogative, their own motives. So I wouldn't associate that with the cause. I feel like the cause was, hear us out and we want change. Y'all need to imply justice in what's going on. And I feel like ultimately why it got more peaceful throughout the days is because we started to achieve that. Like they re-prosecuted the officers in George Floyd's case,
Yeah.
and now they're under investigation. So that shows that we're hitting a milestone.
Yeah. How did the Atlanta police, behave in your city? I mean, I saw a video where a cop smashed a car of an African American brother. I mean, I see. Yeah, there is this in a protest against police brutality. You are seeing police
Mhm.
brutality on the road, isn't it?
Exactly.
In many cities, I'm sure, including in your city. Did you witness anything like that?
Yes, I witnessed a couple police officers using excessive force. That's what they call it. It's
Hmm.
unnecessary to use excessive force when someone is being a peaceful protest. Like in that situation, those students was college students, and they were simply trying to pick up their friend.
Hmm.
They were trying to take their friend home, but the
Yeah.
police officers decided to just pick and choose and arrest him
Yeah.
for being out there. He wasn't looting. Their friend that they was arresting, he wasn't looting or anything. He was simply just walking on the street, waiting on his ride to come pick him up from the protest. And they continued to use excessive force. And when the young brother and the young sister asked them, "Can we just pick him up?" They decided to for multiple police to tase them,
Oh
to
yeah,
shoot
I saw
taser
I
guns.
saw that video. I saw the video. He tased those people inside the car, isn't it?
Hmm.
I saw that
He
video. I
tased
saw.
them.
Yeah, I saw it.
And
That
now, and
that's in Atlanta.
yes, that was in Atlanta.
Okay.
That was during the protest. And this how I know, like, and I feel like that was a prime representation of what we're trying to achieve. And the mayor seen that, and now those officers that was involved in that are facing charges. So I feel like we are hitting milestones from what we're doing, and not everything is violent, but I do feel like there's police officers that abuse their power within the police system, and they
No,
use excessive force.
no shit. The police got charged. Um, I I want to talk to you about your experience with police brutality, and then let's go back a little bit. Have you grown up in Atlanta all your life? Can you tell me about like where you've grown up, where your parents are from, a little bit about that?
Okay, well, my parents are from New York City.
Okay.
That's where both of my parents is from. My dad's from Brooklyn and my mom's from Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was raised all over Georgia. Most of my years I was raised in Atlanta, but my younger days I was raised in Edenton, Georgia. I lived in Athens, Georgia. I lived all around the metro Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
before I've actually lived in the heart of the city of Atlanta.
Right.
And I've experienced all different types of oppression. Some may say like my father was a religious leader. He spoke about different different religions and things like that, and went into depth. And through my younger ages, that's what I grew up around. He's actually in this moment incarcerated and been incarcerated for going on 13 years now.
Oh,
So
he's doing his time now.
yes, he's been locked. He's been incarcerated since I was 7 years old. I'm now 24,
My goodness.
and
Go on.
and he was bent around bringing the people together. He actually had an Egyptian resort in Edenton, Georgia. Y'all can research this. It was a resort that they called a cult. If you look it up through Google and do research on Dr. York, they talked about it as it was a cult bent around hate and things. And I lived in it, and I never experienced that. Like my experiences growing up was we had a large body of land that was built around our culture with Egyptian monuments and things. And I felt like that was the first representation of freedom I've ever had in my life. I was able to, as a child, I was able to run for miles and miles and not worried about being kidnapped, not worried
Hmm.
about police brutality. I was able to share playgrounds with many different kids of many different races without all the oppression and things from the white man in the police system. And it was very organized. That was my experience of it. Now there's many accusations that goes into that of what they call a cult, the Nubian nation. But I mean, me growing up in it, I never experienced that. All I can share that I experienced was when they raided the result. You have a question?
I'm sorry. You were saying this Egyptian resort, right? I mean, what? exactly was that about? Can you just explain a little more because we don't know much about it.
All right, so the Egyptian resort, it was a land that my dad purchased in Edenton, Georgia. He had multiple acres of land where
Okay.
he had people build Egyptian monuments like pyramids, huge pyramids, and it was called an Egyptian theme park. That's what he
Okay.
used to call it.
Okay.
And and it
Why,
go
why
ahead.
did the police raid that?
It was. I would let you do your own research because I don't want to get too deep into it. But it was a couple accusations made against my father about um, child molestation.
Oh my
I quote.
God.
I do the quotations
Yep.
because they were accusations, and I don't. I'm not gonna go. I don't fully go into depth with that because there's a lot of politics that go back and forth within that. But I'm
Right.
telling you, as my personal experience, I've never seen anything like that happen on the Egyptian resort.
How much of your father's arrest is how much is the fact that your father is an African American? How much did that play a role in your father's incarceration and arrest? For example,
Yes.
if this was the case with a white man, what would have happened?
If this was the case with the white man, it would have. I mean, it just depends on what the motive of what they call a cult, because there's different white Americans that establish cults, but those that were in the past that established cults that was white America, a lot of them was bent around suicide, and it had a negative tone to it.
Yeah.
So they try to affiliate us with that negative tone
Oh
because
my
my
God.
father was bent on bringing the black community together. He was all about, we need to be one nation, we need to stand with each other, we need to study our real culture and come
Right.
together
Right.
and basically build businesses for each other that's all black owned. So the land was, we was accepting to other races, so it wasn't just black people, because my father felt that all Mexican Americans, um, Indians,
Hmm.
Native Americans. He felt like all of us shared the same oppression in some form or fashion, and
Yeah.
that we all was black. That was his views. He felt like all of us are black people. We all came from a certain source.
Right.
But that, like I said, it was a lot of different things within his theory that you would have to research for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Why is this common that African American kids are taught they are taught right from the childhood to stay away, be wary of the police, be edgy when the police is when a police officer is around. Is that true? Is that the case with you or everybody else? Most of the people within the African
Yes,
community.
yes. Within the African community, we feel like we have been targeted. We have a target on our back, and what's the perfect word I can say for it? It's like, what's I can't get the word in my mind. It's kind of like you're looked at first. There's going to be
Mm,
it's like when you're around a police officer and their automatic thought is you're doing something bad if you're in the wrong place. Where there's a white person there or different or somebody different, they'll ask them. It'll be like, what are you doing here? For us, we're a criminal first before they find any crime, just
when
because the color of our
le-
skin.
I believe when I listen to what you say, I mean when a police officer is around an African American, maybe he's more stiff and his shoulders are up and he's alert, he's extra alert,
Yes,
isn't it? He is more edgy,
yes,
isn't it?
yes.
And
It's
he's
more edgy.
quite relaxed when he's around a white crowd or something like that.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
automatically perceived as a threat. We're automatically perceived as we're going to be a criminal or we're doing something bad. So they automatically lean towards treating us as if we already committed a crime
Right.
before actually filling out and doing the proper procedure to see if we're committed a crime. It's an assumption like, oh, is a black kid over here. It's I feel like because it's the perception of the black community, they feel like, oh, they're from the ghetto, they live in these areas of negativity, so they automatically associate all black. Yes, son. Here, give him that. They automatically associate us with the negative entities of our surroundings, which it was the reasons we lived in those situations was because of them, was because of the years of slavery and oppression put on us, put a place in us in these ghettos. So when
Yeah.
they look at us, they look at us like, they perceive us like all of y'all are the same. And that's not true. I know some young brothers who grew up in wonderful households, who were very intelligent, who was focused on school, was want to go to college, want to be a great influence in their community, but has experienced brutality from the police, just from a perception, just from, oh, you're black, oh, you look like this, you're this, and it's not right.
What was the top two scary experiences you had with the police? I mean, if you can tell, maybe top or top two. What is the closest thing that
Top
got you
two.
really scared? Really
The
scared.
top two was when I was 7 years old and I lived on the resort of my father's land.
Mm-hmm.
When it was raided, it was raided by the U.S. Marshals. I mean, not the U.S. Marshals. It was raided by the military. And
Wow.
the first experience that I've ever had was 7 years old, looking down the barrel of a G4, saying, "Don't move, or I'll blow your face off."
G4 is a huge.
Yes, I'm not really familiar with the different type of guns, but I remember someone telling me that the military uses G4s, but it's a very big gun.
Bro,
It's a rifle.
there are no guns in India, bro. So that is the reason why
Oh,
I'm asking you. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, but for a 7-year-old facing this huge ass gun in front of a huge ass officer, that must have been
Yes,
hard. Yep. Yeah.
it frightened me, as well as experiencing them. See, it was a moment in that time where they were lining us up when they were doing the raid, and
Mm-hmm.
my older sister was pregnant at the time with my nephew, and she was crying because she was very scared. She was crying and screaming, and I remember one of the officers pointing the gun at her and saying, "Shut up, bitch, before I shoot your baby out your stomach." These are things I experienced at 7 years old.
What? What the
And I can't
fuck?
I'm 24 years old and I cannot get that out of my mind. Like, I still have a vivid picture in my mind of that happening.
I'm.
So that's at the
Yeah.
top of my list. Now the second experience that I've had with police brutality from the police, because that was more military, it
Right.
was when I was 13 years old. They used to do these things at the skating rings called lock-in. Skating ring is where, basically, for teenagers, that was our clubs. We'll go skating, and when they do the lock-in, everybody would take off the skates, they'll play music, and everybody dance. So, like out here, we dance a certain way, so they had certain restrictions on how you should dance. And we were young boys, around 13 years old, so we're attracted to the women, we're attracted to the girls our age, and things like that. So we were dancing. So a situation happened where they end up kicking me and my friend out of the skating ring for dancing. They said we was dancing inappropriately
Okay.
or something like that. So I remember us standing in the front waiting on my friend's auntie to come pick us up. So we was like, and a officer approached us and was like, "Y'all need to walk up this dark street and stand in front of the post office that's closed." It was a post office that all the lights was off. We're kids. And he was like, "Y'all need to walk up there." He was just very angry, very aggressive for no reason. We did nothing. We was simply just standing there waiting for our ride. He was
Mhm.
like, "Y'all need to go take y'all asses up the street. Y'all need to walk up that street and stand up there to wait for y'all ride." And we was like, "Please, officer, no, like they're not gonna be able to see us up there. It's dark. We're afraid to walk over there. Can we just please stand here? Our ride is down the street." He began to keep on tormenting us. So then my friend, which was a little bit older than me, he was like 16, and he said, "See, this is why I hate the police." He said that to the officer. He's like, "See, this is why I hate the police. Why are you bothering us?" Then the
Whoa.
officer decided to start getting physical and putting hands on my friend. He first started off with punching him in the face. He punched him, grabbed him, threw him against the car. And at the moment he started getting physical with him, his auntie, which was my friend's auntie,
Yeah.
pulled up. And she came to a police officer and was like, "No, no, no, stop, stop. He's just a kid." And I remember seeing the police officer look at her and try to knee her as if she was coming to like aid and or fight him. When she was coming to say, "Officer,
Oh,
that's my nephew," she was just coming to say, "Please stop, stop. That's my nephew." And he tried to knee her. And I remember the situation was used badly because none of us got arrested. Actually, one of the other officers got on to the officer, but he was never charged or anything.
yeah,
They just was like, "What's going on with you?" One of the other co-officers just said, "Y'all can go home," and things, but there was never no justice with that situation. And that was, as a child, I didn't understand it back then, or I would have, I would have leaned on my friend and told my friend that he should have pressed charges with that. But we was just kids, and we kind of just brushed it under the rug and went about our day because the other officer came over and said, "I apologize, he's having a bad day," or whatever. So I just feel like it's not right to try to take abuse of the power that you have as an officer.
yeah. How many brothers go through situations like that every day? I mean, this one George Floyd killing was luckily caught on the camera. How many go on behind, without cameras around? How many?
Thousands,
Yeah.
thousands, thousands. I'm talking about, we go all the way back to the 1900s, where the Rodney King situation, that was one of the first that was caught on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I don't know if you're familiar with the Rodney King incident, where and I think it was in Los Angeles, where like 4 or 5 police officers just beat this black man, just beat him to almost a bloody pulp. They almost killed him for nothing at all. And it's different situations. You could look up all the different
Yeah.
situations of
Oh, yeah.
police brutality and in the murdering. Like, it was a situation where a black kid had a toy gun, and a police officer, and he was at a playground, and a police officer shot him dead because he had a toy gun.
The worst part is they do things like that and they get away. That to me is the worst. I mean, all these incidents, all these situations, they escalate so fast and so quickly with an African American rather than
Exactly.
any other uh, decent race, if in their eyes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed that. I've actually witnessed on video where there, during the protest, there was white men who walked up with a rifle on his back, and the police officers just talked to him
Did you
and
see
was
that
like,
shit?
"You."
I wonder if that happened in Atlanta. I think just a week ago, before George Floyd was killed, all these mofos were out there protesting for haircut with fucking AR-15s,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Did, did
Yes.
that did
And
that
not
happen in
one of
Atlanta?
them got shot. I don't think that was Atlanta. I forgot what city that was,
Uh huh.
but I think they did pro. No, I don't think that was in Atlanta.
Right.
But that is a prime example of it. Now, let that be some black. Let that have been a black force of black people carrying rifles. We would have been shot and killed on
There,
site
there,
in the
there would have
street.
been a
They would have.
gunfight.
Yes, it would have been a gunfight, and they would have been the ones who shot first because they look at us as, oh, they're being hostile. They're a hostile ghetto threat. They're radicals, and that's not the truth.
Yeah. So obviously, the thing that happened with you in the resort, that was the first time. When was the first time you really realized that you are being treated different? Not only with the police, but for example, in the school. What was your first memory of where you felt like that?
I mean, that was the very first that I felt. And like
Hmm.
I said, like my father taught on these things. So he always used to tell me. So I already was conscious of the oppression of black people. He taught me about slavery. And I've witnessed it because of just the way I've been treated from white America, of
Hmm.
white women being scared of me. And I didn't do anything. I'm walking through a park and I see them looking at me like I'm going to cause them harm, or the way I've been treated going into a store that may be white owned, and he's automatically thinking I'm gonna steal because I'm black and I'm in the store, or just different things. Like it's so many different things, or little racial undertones where people use a very offensive word, nigger, and say different things. You're like, oh, you're a nigger, or boom, or you. It's hard to really explain because it's more things that I pick up, that I
Well,
notice that as
I,
far as comfortability.
I think what you're trying to say is, yeah, there are all these high profile racial incidents and police killings and all. But what people don't notice is the little subtle things that you go through in your everyday life, right? For example,
Exactly.
you are saying you are in a shop and people assume that you're gonna you know pickpocket and those little things that must be hurting, like little cuts, like 1,000 cuts in a day or something like that, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes, even now at the age of 24, me being a business owner, being that I'm a vendor and I go into people's homes, I still experience oppression because like in this business that I'm in, if I was a white man going into a white woman's home or a white family's home, they would feel like, oh, he's qualified. But when I go into the home being young and being black, they see that I have a tattoo on my face from my past. They automatically think I don't know what I'm doing. They keep questioning me, they keep nitpicking, and I'm like, man, I've been doing this job for 5 years. I'm a professional. I know the ins and outs of what I'm doing, and they just can't get it in their mind because they look at it like, oh, he's a young black guy. Ain't no way he knows what he's doing. He
It
doesn't
is
know what he's doing.
it is in every aspect. I think it is a little harder for people from your community to prove themselves, isn't it? It's just that little you have to work a little extra to gain the trust of you know uh,
Exactly.
for example, your customers in your business, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. Or they feel like you're not worth the price that they're paying. They'll pay a white man way more, but then when they see me and they be like, I start to get questions like, uh, how long is it gonna take you? Oh, it took you that quick? How many of these you do a day? Why are you wondering? Do you feel I'm not professional? Do you feel I'm scamming you? No, I mean, for what I do is I'm an expert at what I do. So and it's costly. So, but you can't. If there was a white man, they won't get questions like that because I've worked in labor with white companies and seen. I used to do fencing and decking. That was a
Hmm.
white-owned company, and I used to work with them. I've never seen them get questioned like that ever. It was always the utmost trust. It was
Yeah.
always willing. The customer was always willing to pay the utmost dollar. But now, me being my own owner and going into these people's homes, I get questions like that all the time. I get people calling me back for the smallest things just because they can't wrap their mind around that I just paid this young black man $500-600 and he was only in here for 2 hours. It just they don't feel right with that. If I was white, it wouldn't be no bother. Oh, he's a professional. But in to them, me just being young and black, it's just like, no, it's no way he could be a professional. And that's a stereotype. And people got to stop relying on them negative stereotypes.
See, business becomes easy in a home when there's a white person around. For most people, that is also the case in India. Believe me. Um, um, I, I want to talk about. You say that you grew up in South, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Very few folks know back here in India that there is racism across US, but the racism in the southern US, I'm talking about states like Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, racism in the
Yes.
south, right? The so-called the deep south, right? Tell me something about that, because it is extra, isn't it,
Yes, it's
down there?
different. You'll have them like like how I can put it. It's a more aggressive tone against people. It's like they would say little things like, "Oh, I don't want him to do that," or "I don't," and you if you ask them what they mean, they'll try to stray from what they actually mean. But being a black male and knowing what they mean, you notice like, "I don't want this nigger doing this job for me," or "I don't want this nigger around my kids." Or you shouldn't hang out with people like that and they don't know you. They don't know your background, they don't know your family. They just automatically go off of these negative assumptions of you because you're black. And it's like, even when I lived in the deep South, it was like they always try to, even when, even though slavery has been abolished and, we're mixed, you will see like even white parents be like, yo, I don't want you hanging around the people like him. They'll say things like that because I had friends that was when I was kids that was white, and I would go to their house, and there was this one situation where I had a friend of mine that was white, and I used to go to his house all the time, but his dad was never there. And one time his dad came while I was there, and I heard him tell him, "I don't want you hanging around people like that." and he knew nothing of me. He didn't know nothing about where I was from. He didn't know anything about me. And he said that in front of me to his son. He said, "You get the fuck out my house." And he was like, "I don't want you hanging around people like that."
Fucking balls, huh?
Yeah. And this is an experience that I see, not even just with things I've experienced. I see people, I see different young black men out here go through this oppression daily, and it has to stop. And that's what I feel like the undertone of the whole protesting. And I love what's going on now. I love that the other countries out there are supporting it, because it's been recognized.
Yep.
And that's the only thing I do love about social media nowadays, because social media nowadays is putting a focus on things. It's catching the things that the news decides not to put out there. It's now
Exactly.
giving people, it's giving people an opportunity to see what's really going on in the community, how we're really held back, how things are harder for us to climb. To be a
Precisely.
black business to be a black business owner in Atlanta, it's not easy as it'll be for a white man. People are not willing to shake your hand as fast as they're willing to shake a white man's hand. They're going to give you the runaround. You have to really, like you were saying before, you have to go above and beyond to prove yourself before they're willing to shake your hand and say, "Okay, I respect you as a business."
The reason why I said that line is because I remember one of my aunts. She lives in Chicago, and she said, "Do you know why I admire Obama?" She said it is because he had to work extra hard to become the president than any other presidents ever been in the history,
Hmm.
because because of his skin color.
Yeah. And that's just the day. That's the day to day out here, man. I've seen it. I've seen it on some of the, like, you wouldn't believe. It's so many cases that my mind's kind of numb to it. I can't always put a focal point on it, because I'm a young black man who pushes past that. I'm successful. I have a home. I run a successful business. I'm working on my music company and things like that. And I had to in order to achieve those things, I had to make a blind spot in my mind and use those things as fuel. Use those things to be like, you know what? I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to show them that I can live at this level and beyond this level, And it's just about supporting each other. And it's not, people feel like us wanting justice for us is saying like, oh, we're against white people. No, black people in the black community isn't against white people. We're against white people oppressing us. We're against not having that real equal shot, because no matter what, because they'll try to say nowadays, oh, things have changed now. Y'all not in slavery. Y'all have an equal shot. But now, if you think about it like this, if you have two people racing in the beginning of a race, they're both beside each other. One person was hit in the leg, and the other person got to make it a mile ahead with no injuries. And then when that person's behind, now you're saying, oh, well, you got equal opportunity to catch up to him. It's no way if I've already been injured in the past in the beginning of the race. There's no way I'm going to catch up to him. He's already ahead of me unless he takes some steps back and help me get to equality with him.
Yeah.
And then we move forward. And that's where they'll try to lean on that. They'll try to lean on, well, we gave y'all freedom, or we gave y'all this, but where's the land in the middle? Where's the things like y'all just threw us in the ghetto? You threw kids without fathers in homes where they're not getting full structure anymore, because most of the fathers are locked up or in jail. So you got kids that's growing up in households without fathers. So they're missing that man structure, the structure that makes them a provider. Because as men, you're a protector and a provider of your family. And in the black community, that's a scarcity. That's a scarcity because it was targeted to be that. They understand that system. That's why if you study the Jim Crow law that was implied back in the slavery days, that was a systematic thing that was set in place to make it this result. So when they try to go back on it, it makes them look crazy, because like, no, but if we pull up the Jim Crow law, look, this is where y'all systematically plan to make it this way, so that we have less opportunity, or we're not built with a full structure to be able to move forward. We don't have that full support system that's like, okay, boom, puts you in the place where you need to be. It's like we have to work harder. We have to learn the things from experience that our father should have taught us.
Exactly. speaking of what you were talking about, the systematic repression that you're talking about. Let me explain, folks from India, the very brief thing that I know. I mean, there was slavery in Deep South, all right, and this after the Civil War, the slavery was banned, but there was still segregation. Correct? I mean,
Mhm.
African Americans had different schools than the white people. African American had different restaurants, different seats in the bus, different parks, different neighborhoods, different churches. It was as if African American community was living in a different country within the same land, isn't it? You
Yes,
There was absolutely no chance of mingling at any avenue in the society, right? Uh, and
exactly,
and of having divided that, you're also devoid of the resources and the opportunities, right? I mean,
exactly.
because for example, your schools are underfunded from hundreds of years, your hospitals are underfunded from hundreds of years, you don't have access to best healthcare, you don't have access to best education, you don't have best access to housing. I mean, because of that, there is crime, and crime leads to violence, which leads to mental health issues. I mean, all these things pile up together, and literally no one has time to understand these things, and all they see is
Exactly,
just violence and shooting and drug wars
exactly,
in the black community. But the people don't really have the time to like dig deep and just think little about where do these things come from, and
come from.
how did they end up where they are, right? and
Exactly,
because they don't understand that, they have no interest in improving the things that you're going through right now, because they think
exactly.
it's just your fault. We don't have nothing to do with it, so there's nothing to improve. It's
Even
they it's
even
they
the
who.
government putting drugs into the community,
Yeah.
putting drugs into the community has affected and made a lot of a lot of the crime and violence that's come from the kids. Because if you put yourself in someone's shoes whose mother and father was on crack growing up, and they
Right.
grew up around the streets and they had no form of protection, so that means any type of negative entity out there, any type of rapist or killer, murderer, anything in the streets out there that was bad, it was nothing to protect them from that.
Yeah.
So then when you have a person that had to protect themselves at a young age, they're built differently. So
Yeah.
we'll look at it as this person is just causing crime, when all in actuality, this is all this person knows, because y'all didn't come in and support him when his mom and dad was on crack. You know, and when that stuff keeps on going like that, this is years and years and years of
Yeah.
those things piling up
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it's got to get better, man. It's just, that's it. It has to get better.
That's the point, isn't it? I mean, people assume that all these protests are about just, the guy was killed by the police and they want justice. It's something more than that, isn't it? You're not only sick and tired of police brutality, you're sick and tired of the lack of improvement, the lack of change. That you're tired of seeing the things being the same, and you're tired of seeing the graph of your community just grow very slow while the other communities are just getting far ahead. It's all these things come together, and they just people all these things are clicking in people's minds. All these little frustrations that were there hiding, they are all coming out at this particular moment, isn't it? On all
Yes,
it's about protesting, about not only about police brutality, but inequality in various levels, at various things, isn't it?
yes, that's exactly the truth.
I want to, because we don't have an idea about this in India, because there are not too many Africans in India. We have very few Africans in India who come from Africa to study. But we I this is my first time interacting with an African person for this long. I've never so I wanted
Yes.
to know this, and as I'm sure many of my listeners, what is this? Why why, why is N word a stigma, if you know what I mean? Can you explain a bit about that, and why we should not call a black person that, nor we should not use that word anywhere for that matter? Can you please explain very shortly?
Because if you go back into the slavery days, that was used to say like you're less. That's a nigger. He's because of his skin, like it's hard to explain, but if you study back into the slavery days, they gave us that title, and their intent of giving us that title was to say they're property, they're less. They're our property, they're our slaves, they're nothing. They're niggers. It's kind of like what can I compare it to? It's an offensive statement. It's in a very offensive statement. Like it was kind of to make mockery. Like if you really study the truth of where the word came from, it's really Niger. Niger is a place in Africa,
Yes.
and they took it and made fun of it and said, "Oh, we're gonna call them nigger," and that was just their way of basically their way of expressing the hate for us, or to say you're nothing. You're just a nigger. A nigger, when you associate the word nigger, you associate slave, owned by something better than them. So
Right.
that's how it's looked at now. When you say someone's a nigger, it's referring back to the slavery days, saying you're nothing. You amount to nothing. You're an animal. You're dirt. You're shit. It's all the same. It's all equal to that.
Because I want to make this very clear, because there are very, very few listeners and very few friends in my circle who use that word to themselves. Although we are Indians, not to the African people, but to each other, Indian friends. But I just want to make it clear that that is so wrong, folks. Stop using that word. Period. Right. That is the message
Yes.
I would like to give.
See,
Um,
even I was about to say, even in America, like black people has try to turn things into a positive. So
mhm.
in the black community, you have two young brothers that be like, "Yo, my nigga, my da da da," and I even try to inform my friends like, "Yo, stop using that word unless you're gonna say niggas." Niggas is an African word that's like Nugus,
Mhm.
because in African words that means young king. So I'll
Mhm.
be like, if you're gonna say something similar, say niggas. Be like, oh, you're my niggas, not nigger.
Right.
Because niggas
Yeah.
niggas means king. It means king, black
Mhm.
king. So that's the only difference, that where people feel like, well, in the black community, they use it against each other, or
Exactly.
they talk to each other that way.
Then why
But
can't we talk in our community that way? That is the thinking, which is fucking
yeah,
wrong. But yeah.
and I mean, I feel them, and that's why I always advise the young black community, like, yo, know what you're saying. Don't just say it because this has became a word, and I feel like the intention of using it amongst our community was to try to shed a positive light on it. It was trying to say like, I acknowledge you're another black brother.
Right.
That's what it means to us when we say nigga, not
Right.
nigger.
Right.
We'll say nigga. We try to change the stereotype around to make it more comfortable.
Mhm.
But I feel like ultimately we should use niggas, because niggas is an actual word in Africa that means king.
Mhm. Cool. Um, uh, do you know anything about your ancestors or your parents? I mean, what were the stories that your parents used to tell about your grandparents or your grandfather? If you had seen your grandparent, what were the stories you used to hear from them? Because it must have been tough for them. I mean, yep, things are bad, but I think the current generation is enjoying a little better world than the people in the past, isn't it? So what do
Most
you
definitely.
yeah, but what do you remember? What are your memories about the stories of their world in their time and so on?
It was craziness. Like I've heard stories, or back in the day, like one of my brother's mom. We had the same dad, but we have different mothers. One of my brother's mom, her father was killed by a couple white men because of I forgot, because of he was a business owner, he was getting a lot of money, he was doing pretty good once the segregation happened,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't like that, and they decided to murder him in the streets in front of her. That was a story that my brother shared with me, that his mom shared with him, like when she was a child. She was like, when she was a child, four white men just decided to murder him because he used to take them out for ice cream, he used to take them to areas where things was better, and was like, I feel like my kids deserve to have nice things because I work hard, and just other different stories, like from back in the day when I talked to my grandma. She told me when she growing up, they were just like, their parents was very strict on them, like, don't go over here. It was, even though nowadays it's an undertone version of that, Like
Right.
our parents will tell us like, make sure you're not in these areas just walking around because of the police. Back then it was different. Back then it was more serious. It was like, don't go in these areas because they will kill you. Just being black. Don't walk in a certain area. Don't be out by yourself in these certain areas.
Fuck.
Watch what you say. They'll tell them it was a more scared, like, watch what you say. Watch what you do. Be aware of all your surroundings because at any moment, some white people could decide to gang up on you and murder you or beat you up. There was things like that going on all around the city where it'd be young girls just walking or young black guys just walking and a group of white kids decide to just beat them up and hit them with sticks over the head. Or even like in the educational system, you weren't allowed to go to schools. I know y'all seen pictures of back in the days where the first black people got allowed to go to a certain college that was all white. And
Yeah.
as they're walking into the college, the white kids are just beating them up for no reason, just jumping on them. And they were intelligent kids. They were top of their class,
Yeah.
just wanting to have an opportunity to learn. So when I see things like that, it's like, and it's so many stories. That's why it's like so much. I can't even like get a
I
set one.
understand.
It was so much people just getting killed for no reason, just for walking or having
Yeah.
to use the bathroom you know, or even like protesting when they used to protest back in the days, they used to come out there with fire hoses and spray them. And if you know anything about a fire hose, the pressure of that water is strong enough to, if it hits a kid, it could break a bone.
Yeah.
And they're hitting them with batons and letting dogs on them and different things. It was crazy.
Yeah, did any of your family members take part in the civil rights movement back in the day? I mean, do you have any info about that by any chance?
Um, I don't have too much info. I just have little shared stories.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not one to try to lean too hard on the things like that because it's hurtful, it's painful, and
Okay.
to talk about these things. So I don't try to make them revisit some of the things they experienced. I kind of
Right.
let it come out naturally. If they
Mm-hmm.
just be like, "Yo, this was it was like when I was a child,"
Mm-hmm.
then my ears open. But I don't like to really pry into it because
Mm-hmm.
people experience some different things, and there's a lot of pain and hurt that went into that.
Right. Right. One question that I totally forgot to ask is, yes, you have all the issues with racism and all that. What different happened when Trump got elected? I mean, what was different after Trump got elected? What can you
I
tell
feel
about
like
that?
me personally, I feel like when Trump was elected, what made things different is the racism got out of hiding because
Mm,
a lot of like he's a very bold type of individual that speaks on how he feels about things, and when you get into his supporters, you start to see a lot of the hatred side. You start
mm,
to see a lot of those who've always hated black people. Even the slogan "Make America Great Again," he's referring to a time where we were slaves. So that's blatantly saying to the black community, like, I'm rooting for the white people who support stealing and robbing to get ahead. So that's what I
damn.
felt personally. Yeah, that's what I felt personally changed. It got more bold. It got like, yo, y'all of those who's with the oppression, stand up. That's how I took the whole slogan, Make America Great Again. Because in the first place, it was wrong, but that's what made America as big as it made it. It was
Precisely.
it was robbing and stealing from other cultures
Yep.
and bullying. And I feel like that's what Trump represents. He represents a big bully that just believes in taking for betterment, take and steal. Even if you look into him as a businessman before he was president, that's what he prized on. He prized
Right.
on gimme, 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 back, 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 back. Mine.
Precisely. Yep. Exactly. What do you think is going to happen now? I mean, if you had a guess and if you had to put your money on something, is he going to win again?
Um, I hope not, but
Uh-huh.
I feel like what's more important is reaching out to the younger community because I'm a part of the younger community and we have this ideology where we don't want to vote because
Oh,
we feel like the voting system has been rigged. Personally, like a lot of the young community feels like their voice in voting is not going to be heard. They feel like that's something that can be tampered with. And they have a hard time trusting it. So they're like, what does it matter? When I talk to some of the young brothers, they're like, what does it matter if I vote? It's not going to work anyway because they control those things. So I feel like, but it's worth a try. I feel like we should get out there and vote for someone other than Trump. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
but like, I'm a man of just kind of going with the flow. So hopefully it doesn't happen, but we'll see what happens. And
Right.
like, one thing I can agree upon is the Most High plans everything, and everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to,
Right. Right.
for the most part.
Uh, is it true that in especially in the southern states, right? Is it true that the black voters are not even allowed to register? I mean, their names have been taken off the rolls and things like that happen, or
Yeah. Oh yeah. In the like the last vote, like back the last polls before when Trump first became president, there was a lot of things going on. There was a lot of people who put a ticket in who it didn't serve a purpose. I mean, I didn't do too much research. I just heard some wind of different
right,
things that's happening.
right,
But just like everything that happens bad, it comes up in the media and then something sweeps it under the rug.
yep,
Then nobody's ever talking about it again. But I've heard
excellent,
many different things. I heard that, that the ballot was tampered with from Russia
right,
in the last ballot. And I
yeah,
heard that it was a big thing in the media and then
yeah,
it just disappeared.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So it was like and I feel like that's what plays on the young community trusting that, because you
right,
got these things that's coming up in the media saying, oh, they're tampering with the ballots.
yeah, yeah,
So it's a lose-lose. Once you start to look at things like it's a lose-lose, you be like, what's the point of doing it anyway? It's a lose-lose.
exactly, exactly. But maybe our podcast has been very gloomy and with full of gritty stories. But I think there must be some better things, right? I mean, you must have seen some
Yes.
wonderful people around you from other races. I mean, what we see, what the incidents that we see, these are very very small number of people who grab a massive attention, isn't it? But you must be
Yes.
surrounded with some wonderful people, not only from African American community, but from other communities, isn't it?
Most definitely. That's what I love about these day and age, and that's what people like the young community has to realize, that we have some support. Now the systems, that's where our focus is. It's not as bad as it was back in the slavery day. It's just saying that what made the systems the way they are now was the slavery days. So we're saying,
Right.
like, if the rule books was made in an unfair time, then y'all need to change the rule books. You know what I mean? But
Y-
other than that, like, in the community now, I see a lot of young black entrepreneurs who fight against oppression, and they're able to be stronger and they're able to still make it through, like me, like myself. I didn't been arrested a couple times for different things, just being a product of my community. And still at the age of 24, I managed to get past all the stereotypes and to be a business owner of my own, to have beautiful kids and be able to try to give them an opportunity. But that stemmed from being stronger than my oppression. So there's a lot of cases like that out here. There's a lot of young black people and a lot of young people, period, who fight past their oppression and work hard and jump that hurdle. But we was more so addressing the ones that can't.
Yeah.
It's so much odds stacked against them that it's hard for them to do that. It takes a certain amount of strength to be able to get past your oppression,
Right.
and it takes a certain type of mind power as well. You have to be driven, you have to be motivated, you have to be dedicated. These are things that motivate me. It's wanting better for my black community and wanting to be an influential force in my community. That's what drives me and motivates me to go as hard as I do, because I want to be able to put myself in a financial standpoint where I'm able to invest into politics to help some of these situations. But it's
Lovely.
very few. Yeah, it's very few that is that driven for that. Some just feel the pain and the burden of it. And that's where I want to be the strength. I want to be able to come in for those who feel all that burden and be like, brother, sister, here's your way out. I'm gonna help you get things, because more of that is what we need.
Exactly.
Is what we need. It's a misconception. These kids need, these young people out here that they're painting as criminals, they need help. It ain't that they just want, it's not like they just want to go out and do this. It's this
Precisely.
is all they this is all they know at this point. They need some mental help, they need some support, they need
Yeah.
structured support systems that helps them full around, not just in one aspect. It's not just like, oh well, we gave you financial aid, but we give you a bare minimum. A lot of these people need mental support. They need someone
Right.
to help them to know how to think better for betterment. Because if you've never seen betterment around you in your life, it becomes very hard to think betterment, or to
Yeah.
think progression. You kind of just think like it is what it is. This is the way life is.
Right.
And that's what needs to change right there.
Right. Right. The one thing wonderful about these protests is like you must be glad that people from around the city. I mean, people from various communities, races, religions are coming together in this. That must have been that. This is isn't this something different about this protest, isn't it? Every time there is a protest against brutality, it's only African American community protesting. But now it's all over, isn't it? That must have
Yes, I
made
love
made
it.
you happy. Yep.
Yes, I love it. That means that change is happening. These moments of these situations happening is gonna have a little bit of a negative undertone because of the looters, but ultimately it's gonna go down in history because at this moment we stand as one community. It ain't about race, it's about perspective, it's about equality. And that's what I love about now more than ever is that everybody's standing up and saying, yes, they have been robbed. If you study into what the history of slavery and things like that, and not just the black community, you had the Native American community as well that was robbed. So it's other communities that's experienced forms of oppression, and now everybody is standing as one and saying these things need to change. We are the community. The government don't make all the decisions for us. We as a community should make the decisions. And I love it. I love it 100%. As long as
Well,
it's peaceful, nobody's killing each other, and our point is getting across, that's all that matters. And I feel now more than ever, the point is getting across. They're hearing us out. They're like, wow, this is what they want. And we're not going to stop until we get it.
brilliant.
And that's what I love about now. We're
Brilliant.
not going to stop until we get it. And we're all going to stand together.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the near future, there's a beautiful day where everybody's equal. Everybody's able to live a wonderful life for all of our kids, your kids, my kids, anybody's kids, even white people's kids as well, because there's no hatred that comes from outside. I want to see everybody do great. I want everybody to be good. I don't want nobody oppressed. Everybody to have equal opportunity.
As you say, amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, what are your plans for the upcoming days, as in terms of protest? Are you going to protest more? I mean, do you have a group that is coordinating? What lies in the future in the upcoming few days or weeks with respect to this?
I mean, for me, I'm a busy man. I mean, I'm definitely going to be involved in the protests more,
Hmm.
just to be a voice and to stand with my community.
Hmm.
But I feel like a lot of the things start with self as well. It's
Right.
what can you do personally to help this? That's what the protesters got to start asking themselves. What can I do in my personal life to help these situations? And I
Hmm.
feel like what I can do more than ever is work to grow my businesses, like being a vendor. I can help some of these young black brothers and young oppressed brothers from any race be able to be their own boss, be able to,
Right.
have an essential skill rather than be an employee. So I
Hmm.
feel like that's a big deal because I didn't have that before I was able to run my own business. I was job to job, and there's certain jobs I just couldn't get because I'm black, or they're like, oh, you don't have enough experience, and they put me in warehouse, all these different labor jobs. So I want to be able to give people the opportunity who are not good at things like that, who's not good at somebody being over them and talking down on them. I want to be able to be like, here, learn a skill, be able to provide for your family. So that's a part I could play as well as once I once I get into music and stuff like that, and I get a large financial benefits from music, I'm able to give back to my community, help build homes, help families get on their feet, all those different things. That's what I personally plan to do to help. And I feel like that's where it all starts. Everybody should have a personal goal of themselves of how they want to help if they strongly feel this needs to change. And if enough people do that, it will.
I spoke about what are your plans in the upcoming weeks. What are your long-term plans? I mean, you'll grow up, in the upcoming 5 years, 10 years. How do you, of course, you said you when you get more financial, when you're well off financially, you're going to help communities. You also spoke something about politically, you're going to help. Can you elaborate on that? I mean, I'm talking about long term, if you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm not going to act like I'm huge on politics. I'm not big on politics, but I just some of the organizations that supporting this, supporting helping the Black community and supporting the oppression and helping other communities, I want to be able to put money behind that.
Right.
And in my growth of learning more about it. Because like I'm not gonna act like I'm a big, like I know everything about the politics, but I do know about these different I know about different organizations that are into those politics. And I want to be an extra force to be able to help fund, to help them get the things they need to be able to help.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Right. Got it. Got it. Brother, it is a little stressful time for the Afro American community out there. What would be your message? What would be your parting message? And is there anything that we have spoken right now? We have been speaking for a long time. Is there anything we have missed? And is there anything you'd like to say as a message, or as anything that you've missed talking about?
I would just say as a parting, because I do have to go. I have a couple things to do today. I
Right.
would just say to my Black community and to every community out there, support each other, stand with each other. In these times, I feel like everybody needs to stand with the Black community because we've been robbed, and we need to stand together as in peace. And those who have the financial benefits to be able to help put it into helping this. Let's all do this and let's peacefully do this. There's no hatred that we purposely want to put into this. It's only people's personal agendas. So I feel like the main biggest point is let's stand together as
Right.
people because we're
Right.
humans first.
Right.
So let's all stand together and let's make these systems correct for
Yeah.
everything, every form of oppression, even for Mexicans. Set up something where they're able to have a better opportunity in America, where,
Right.
because it's different races being oppressed. I feel like the most important thing is that we all come together and work on
Right.
all the problems as a community, not just
Brill-
the government make all the decisions. All of us need to come together.
Brilliant, man. I mean, uh, you have great aspirations, you have great intentions, and you are doing great. I hope all your wishes come true, all your aspirations come true.
Thank you
I,
very
I
much.
hope I hope you become really successful in your business and your music.
Thank you very much.
It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. This is being the first time that I'm interacting with with an African American. I had a great time talking to you.
The
Thank you very
pleasure
much.
is all mine, brother. The
Same,
pleasure is all mine.
same here, mutual. Man, thank you very, very, very much for doing this. We've been talking around for past 1 week, and finally we made it happen. I'm glad it happened.
Appreciate
I
it.
hope your message reaches out, man. I wish you all the best, man.
And I wish you the best, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Have
Thank
a
you very
blessed
much.
day.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. That was Mahdi, brother. Before going, can you tell people how we can find you on the social media?
All right. So you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Mahdi Music. That's TheMahdiMusic. And you can find music on all streaming platforms. That's Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, whatever platform. You just look up Mahdi and you'll see me come up.
Brilliant, brilliant, man. Perfect. I think people will find you. People will like your stuff. Thanks for doing this again, man. You have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
for having me.
everyone.
You too.